June 19, 1944. Over the Philippine Sea. The morning sun glints off silver waves, the horizon thick with humidity and tension. From the decks of American carriers hundreds of dark blue aircraft roar into the sky. Their wings bear a white star, the symbol of a nation now on the offensive. Below, sailors shield their eyes as a storm of engines echoes across the water. Above, the pilots of the Imperial Japanese Navy see them, small distant dots, and laugh. Their radios buzz with confidence. Just more American Wildcats, one pilot says in Japanese. They still send the same slow planes. But what they are about to meet is no Wildcat. It is a machine built from the ashes of Pearl Harbor. A plane designed not for elegance but for dominance. The Grumman F6F Hellcat. And before this day ends, it will write its name in history in the smoke of over 300 Japanese aircraft falling into the sea below. This is the story of the fighter the Japanese underestimated until it destroyed their empire's wings. 1942. The Pacific War burns like wildfire. The Japanese Zero light, agile and deadly, rules the skies from Burma to Midway. Against it, the U.S. Navy sends the F-4F Wildcat, a tough but underpowered machine. Its guns jammed, its engines overheated, its pilots fought with courage but against impossible odds. At Midway, U.S. pilots were slaughtered. At Wake Island, they fought to the last bullet. Japan's aces, men like Saburo Sakai and Hiroyoshi Nishizawa, became legends, outnumbered but unstoppable. Their planes outturned, outclimbed and outfought nearly everything the Allies had. But back in New York, in a small factory on Long Island, one company refused to accept defeat. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation. Its founder Leroy Grumman was known as the Iron Works Man. His philosophy was simple: build them strong, build them to win. After hearing reports from Midway, he gathered his engineers. "What our boys need," he said, "is a plane that climbs like a devil, dives like thunder, and takes a beating without dying." And so the F6F Hellcat was born. It began as an experiment. The Hellcat looked bulky, heavy, more like a tank than a fighter. Even Grumman's own test pilots doubted it. Then came June 26, 1942. Test pilot Bob Hall took off from the runway at Bethpage Field. The engine growled, a 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, the same beast that powered the P-47 Thunderbolt. The moment the Hellcat lifted off, it clawed into the sky with raw fury. It was not graceful. It was not sleek. But it was unstoppable. Within months, Grumman built prototype after prototype, adjusting the wings, thickening the armor, and arming it with 650 caliber Browning machine guns, each capable of firing 800 rounds per minute. When naval officers first saw it, they were unimpressed. "It is big," one muttered, "too heavy for carrier decks." Grumman's answer was simple. "It will bring your pilots home." The Hellcat entered service in 1943, replacing the Wildcats that had held the line since Pearl Harbor. It was ready, but no one yet knew what it was truly capable of. Until it met the Zero in combat. August 31, 1943, near Marcus Island. A lone F-6F Hellcat flown by Lieutenant Junior Grade Richard Loesch spotted a formation of Zeros. The Japanese rolled to engage, confident as ever. Their light aircraft danced through the sky, turning effortlessly. But when Loesch dove, the Hellcat did not slow. It screamed through the air like a falling hammer. 6 guns roared. 1 Zero exploded instantly, a flash of flame, a spiral of smoke. The others scattered, confused. For the first time in the war, the Japanese faced a plane that could dive faster, climb harder, and take hits without falling apart. Word spread quickly across the Pacific. A new fighter had arrived. And it was hungry. June 19, 1944, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The Japanese Navy launches 373 planes from carriers and island bases, hoping to crush the U.S. fleet near the Marianas. They expect to find slow, clumsy fighters, the same old Wildcats. Instead, they find Hellcats. The Americans scramble from 9 carriers. More than 200 F-6F Hellcats rise to meet the enemy. Radar operators call it in. Bogies inbound bearing 320 distance 70 miles. Over the radio Admiral Mark Mitcher gives the order. Launch the fighters, knock them out of the sky. The first waves collide above the open sea. Japanese Zeros dive in tight spirals, graceful, elegant but doomed. The Hellcats do not turn, they strike. They use altitude, power and fire. In the span of a few hours the air becomes chaos. Engines scream, tracers slash through clouds. Explosions blossom like dark flowers. When it is over, the sea is littered with wreckage. The Japanese lose over 300 planes, nearly their entire first wave. American losses 29. One pilot later called it a turkey shoot. The name stuck. But behind the joke was something far more serious. Japan's air power was dead. The Hellcat had destroyed it. From 1943 to 1945 the F6F Hellcat scored more than 5,200 confirmed kills, over 75% of all U.S. Navy aerial victories in the Pacific. Its kill ratio 19-1. No fighter in history had ever done that before. Pilots loved it, mechanics trusted it. And the Japanese who once laughed learned to fear its shadow. Veteran ace Saburo Sakai, who had survived countless dogfights, once admitted. The Hellcat was faster, stronger and deadlier. It was the end of us. From the decks of the Enterprise, Yorktown and Lexington, Hellcats flew thousands of missions through flak storms and night raids. They strafed airfields, sank ships, protected bombers. And they always came home. Even when riddled with bullets they landed. Even when engines failed they glided back to their carriers. The Japanese called them Blue Death. By the war's end Japan's once proud air force was shattered, its elite aces gone, its factories silent. The Hellcat had done its work. When peace finally came in 1945 the Hellcat's reign quietly ended. Jet aircraft replaced propellers. But for the men who flew her the Hellcat was more than steel and rivets. It was a symbol of redemption, of how America rose from the smoke of Pearl Harbor to command the skies. Many pilots said the same thing when they climbed out after a mission. She saved my life. Today only a few Hellcats still fly, preserved in museums, their dark blue paint faded by time. But when their engines start, when the propeller spins and that deep thunder rolls again, those who listen can almost hear the echo of war and the laughter that turned to silence. They called it slow. They called it clumsy. But in the end it was unstoppable. The Grumman F6F Hellcat, the fighter Japan never saw coming. In the months after the Philippine Sea the Hellcat became more than just a weapon, it became the hammer that shaped the end of Japan's empire. Everywhere the Pacific War burned the Hellcat was there, its engines roaring above the islands of Saipan, Guam and Tinian, its guns cutting through the air like thunder. When American Marines stormed the beaches the Hellcats flew low, strafing pillboxes and artillery positions, their wings flashing with muzzle fire, their pilots silent, focused, determined. For them the war was not about glory but about survival and duty. At night carrier decks glowed faintly under red lights as mechanics worked tirelessly, wiping oil from metal skin, patching holes, sealing bullet scars. The smell of salt and fuel filled the air. Some planes never returned, their names painted over, replaced by new numbers and new pilots, but the spirit of the Hellcat remained constant, relentless. By late 1944 the Japanese Navy was a shadow of its former self. Once mighty carriers like Shokaku and Zuikaku now lay beneath the waves. The skies that once belonged to the Zero were now ruled by the Hellcat, its silhouette etched permanently against the Pacific horizon. The Japanese tried to counter with new aircraft, the Kawanishi N-1K, the Mitsubishi J-2M, riding faster, stronger, but the pilots were young, untrained, inexperienced. Most barely knew how to land on a carrier before being thrown into combat against Hellcats flown by veterans with hundreds of missions behind them. The result was inevitable. Every new battle brought the same outcome: smoke, flames, silence. By early 1945 the Hellcat escorted bombers to Tokyo itself, the heart of the empire. They met what remained of Japan's air defense, but the fight was over before it began. The once proud nation of pilots and warriors had been grounded. The Hellcat had not just dominated the air, it had reshaped the war itself. It allowed the U.S. Navy to push closer to Japan, island by island, mile by mile. Without it the great carriers would have been blind, vulnerable, easy prey. With it they were unstoppable. Admiral Mitcher himself once said, "The Hellcat won the air war over the Pacific, and it did it faster than anyone could have imagined." Each pilot who climbed into its cockpit knew what that meant. They were flying history in real time. In the final months of the war a new word entered the American vocabulary: kamikaze. Japanese pilots, desperate and young, flew their planes directly into American ships, choosing death over defeat. The Hellcats rose again, not to hunt fighters but to protect their fleets from human bombs. They intercepted hundreds, shooting them down before they could reach the carriers. Many still broke through, but without the Hellcats the toll would have been unimaginable. April 1945, Okinawa. The sky was a storm of chaos, thousands of planes twisting, diving, exploding. The Hellcats fought day after day, mission after mission, without rest. Their pilots ran on coffee and adrenaline. Their eyes burned from smoke and salt. And still they flew. By the time the war finally ended in August 1945, the numbers told the story. 19-to-1 kill ratio. Over 5,000 enemy aircraft destroyed. A legacy no fighter before or after has ever matched. When the war ended, many Hellcats were pushed aside, parked in long-forgotten airfields, their engines silent, their propellers still. Some were scrapped, melted down, turned into metal for a peaceful world. But to those who remembered, they were never just planes. They were wings of vengeance, forged from defeat, tempered by courage, and finished in victory. Pilots who once laughed now spoke their names with respect. Even Japanese veterans, when interviewed years later, admitted the truth. The Hellcat was a masterpiece, they said. It ended our domination of the air. One story tells of an old Japanese ace who visited a museum decades later. He stood quietly before a preserved F6F, its dark blue paint glinting under soft light. He touched the wing and whispered something only he could understand. Perhaps it was an apology, or perhaps a salute. Because even enemies could respect what the Hellcat represented. It was not born from hatred but from necessity. Not from arrogance but from resolve. From the ashes of Pearl Harbor came the wings that changed the war. The Grumman F6F Hellcat, a fighter that outflew fear itself and carried a nation to victory. And though time has faded its color and silenced its roar, the legend remains. In every museum hangar, in every black and white photograph, in every grainy film of the Pacific sky. The Hellcat still flies. A reminder that strength is not in beauty or speed but in resilience, in the will to rise again and never fall twice to the same enemy. The Japanese once laughed at it. But history remembers who laughed last.